Welcome to the Prescott Lab Podcast, not just theory, practical science for everyone. I'm Dr. Jonathan Prescott, a physician and integrative medicine researcher at the Ravenshade Institute for Human Health. Today, I want to start with a truth most men never hear and even fewer ever speak out loud. You've been making love to the same woman for 30, maybe even 40 years. You've held her, you've cherished her, you've been there through every wrinkle, every celebration, every silent Sunday morning. But here's the part no one told you. She may have never once reached orgasm from intercourse. Not because you didn't love her, not because you weren't trying, but because no one ever taught you how her body actually works. You were given a map, but the map was missing half the roads, and yet you kept driving. You see, after 60, the question isn't, can I still perform? It becomes, can I still make her feel something she's never felt before? And the answer is yes. That's what this entire episode is about, a quiet revolution. A way of relearning, re-listening, retouching, but with presence, not pressure. So before we go further, I'm going to ask you man to man, if you haven't subscribed to this channel yet, now is the time. And if this topic already feels like something you wish you'd heard 20 years ago, go ahead and tap that like button. Not for me, but because every single like gives us a reason to keep doing this. To bring you more honest, hopeful, science-backed conversations about real men, real aging, and real intimacy. Your support is our fuel. Now, what if I told you that the simplest way to give her more pleasure is to let her take control? Let's talk about what happens when she's on top, not just physically, but emotionally, hormonally, and even neurologically. Because sometimes giving up control is the most powerful thing a man can do. Let's explore that next. On why being on top is her superpower. I remember a man named Richard, 67 years old, retired Navy, married to the same woman for over 4 decades. He sat in my office, his hands folded, voice steady but hesitant. "Doc," he said, "I love my wife, always have, but I don't think I've ever really satisfied her, not the way she deserves." That kind of honesty doesn't come easy, especially from men raised to measure themselves by control, performance, and strength. But what Richard was beginning to understand was this: true strength in intimacy sometimes means stepping back. You see, for most of our lives, we were taught that being a good lover meant taking the lead. But neuroscience, pelvic floor imaging, and simple lived experience tell us something else. The female body is not built around passive reception. It's built around active sensation. And when a woman is on top, facing you, she gains full authority over the angle, the rhythm, and the depth. This isn't just about giving her the reins. It's about giving her the chance to finally tune into the specific sensations that bring her real pleasure. What most men don't realize is that slight shifts in how she moves can dramatically increase blood flow to her entire clitoral structure. This isn't guesswork. It's been visualized on real-time ultrasound. Pressure becomes symmetrical. Sensitivity increases. The body opens up, and the beauty of this position, you're face to face, which means your eyes are speaking even when your mouths are quiet. You're not just doing something to her, you're with her, you're sharing. And in that closeness, something begins to unfold that performance never could trust. Richard came back a month later with tears in his eyes. He told me it wasn't wild or acrobatic. They just held each other. She moved how she wanted. He let her guide. And for the first time in decades, she said the words he never thought he'd hear. "I felt everything." That's what this shift is about, letting her lead not because you're lost, but because she knows the way. Her body holds the map. All she needed was space to read it. And once you've seen what's possible when control becomes invitation, you begin to understand that every detail, every angle, every contour has the potential to change how she experiences pleasure. That's why, even in the most traditional of positions, with just one small adjustment, everything can feel completely new. Let me show you how. 2. The pillow trick that reignites passion. Thomas and Linda had been married 52 years. The kind of couple who still shared a toothbrush holder but hadn't shared deep physical connection in a very long time. They weren't in trouble, they weren't fighting, but intimacy had become quiet, predictable. A routine they performed out of habit, not heat. He came to me not with complaints, but with concern. "Doc," he said, "we still love each other, but it's like we're just going through the motions. She's there, I'm there, but it's not us anymore." So I asked him the simplest question a doctor can ask: have you ever changed the angle? He gave me that look most men do when I say that. "You mean like new positions?" "No," I said, "I mean one small shift, a pillow." What most couples don't realize is that the angle of penetration changes everything, especially in familiar positions like missionary. When a woman lies flat on her back, the natural alignment often causes thrusting to bypass some of her most sensitive structures, particularly the clitoral complex. But when you elevate her hips slightly with a firm pillow under her lower back or pelvis, her body tilts toward you, literally opening the pathway for deeper contact and, more importantly, better stimulation of the areas that actually bring her pleasure. It's simple physics, yes, but it's also something more tender than that. When Thomas tried this, he didn't just add a pillow. He added attention. He asked Linda if she was comfortable. He adjusted. He moved slower. He watched her face instead of chasing performance. She cried after, not out of pain, out of something that had been unlocked. A kind of warmth she thought had gone quiet forever. He came back and said, "We didn't need something new. We just needed something that made it feel new again." And that's the heart of this. Intimacy doesn't always need reinvention. Sometimes it just needs intention. So the next time you find yourself in a position that feels familiar, don't assume it's run its course. Try a pillow, watch her body shift, ask her if that feels better. Let the position evolve through presence. Because sometimes the greatest spark comes not from something wild, but from something small done with love. And once you've seen how this one adjustment can reignite her body, you'll start to wonder, what else have we been overlooking all these years? You might be surprised how one more shift, this time in rhythm rather than in posture, can change everything she feels inside. 3. The rhythm that rocks her to ecstasy. Jerry and Diane had been married 39 years. They still touched each other, still laughed, still lay in the same bed every night. But there was a silence between them during sex that neither could name. Until one day Diane said the thing she'd held in her chest for years. "I love being with you," she told him, "but I've never really felt it, all the way, not the way I think I'm supposed to." It wasn't anger. It wasn't disappointment. It was longing, quiet, buried longing. When Jerry told me this, he looked stunned. "Doc, I had no idea." She never said anything. And that's the truth, isn't it? So many women don't say anything because they love us, because they think it's enough, because they don't want to hurt us, so they go along, they smile, they moan softly, and they fake connection while we chase performance. But here's what I showed Jerry. It wasn't about thrusting harder or lasting longer or doing more. It was about doing differently. I taught him a technique that's barely even discussed in most clinics. The coital alignment technique. CAT, they call it in the literature, but it's not an acronym you need to memorize. It's a rhythm you need to feel. At first glance, it looks like missionary, nothing new. But instead of thrusting in and out, the man adjusts his position slightly higher so his pubic bone aligns directly over the clitoris. From there, the movement changes completely. No more pounding, just rocking. Your pelvis presses against hers in a slow, gliding rhythm, and instead of building friction, you build pressure. Gentle, sustained, targeted pressure. You're not trying to break through a wall. You're dancing just beneath the surface, waking up every nerve that's been waiting for you to notice. And when both of you let go of the idea of reaching a finish line, that's when something extraordinary happens. The body softens. The heart opens, and her pleasure stops being something you aim at and starts being something you share. Jerry didn't get it perfect the first time, no one does, but after a few tries, after the laughter, the awkwardness, the pauses, something shifted. She looked at him differently. He moved slower. They synced without words. And for the first time in almost 40 years, Diane reached a place she never thought she could with her husband, in his arms. With nothing but presence and patience guiding them. That's what the right rhythm can do. It turns effort into art. And once you felt that kind of synchrony, you realize, it's not about how deep you go, it's about what you press against while you're there, and who you become when you stop performing and start participating. But what happens when you take away even the rhythm, when you stop moving entirely, not to withdraw, but to get even closer? The answer might just change how you define intimacy for the rest of your life. 4. Face-to-face, heart-to-heart. Harold was a retired high school coach, the kind of man who had calloused hands, sharp eyes, and a voice that once echoed across football fields. He was 72 when he came to see me. He didn't come in with a symptom, he came in with a feeling. "Doc," he said, "we've been through everything. Kids, cancer, infidelity, we're still here. But lately during sex, it feels like she's 1,000 miles away." And then he paused, his voice softer than I expected. "I don't think she sees me anymore, and I don't know if I see her either." There was no anger in his words, only grief. The kind that creeps in slowly until one day you look across the bed and realize you're lying next to someone you love deeply but haven't truly touched in years. So I didn't give him a technique, I gave him a posture. Sit up, both of you, face to face, legs intertwined, chest to chest, not to excite. To reconnect, there's something profound that happens when you strip away thrust and movement and rhythm. When the goal is no longer climax but contact, you begin to notice things you've forgotten how to see. The curve of her smile, the color of her eyes in low light, the way she exhales when you run your fingers down her back. In that position, you can whisper something or say nothing. You can hold her hips or rest your hand on her heart. There is no script, only breath shared. Harold said the first time they tried it, it felt awkward. They laughed, they fumbled, but then something changed. She softened, he stopped trying, and suddenly they weren't two old people trying to have sex. They were two human beings remembering how to love. That night, he told me they didn't rush, they didn't even move that much. But when it was over, she cupped his face and said, "I've missed this version of you." That's the power of presence. Research will tell you that sitting positions can still provide pleasurable stimulation. That blood flow increases, that nerve endings are activated, and that's all true. But what makes this position unforgettable isn't the science, it's the stillness. The way she feels when she knows you're not trying to fix anything or prove anything, you're just there, fully. It's in that quiet that we often say the most. And once you've experienced that kind of presence, you'll start to wonder. If something so still could feel this intimate, what else could shift just by listening closer? Some answers don't lie in movement. They lie in subtle changes, in one-inch adjustments, the kind you never think to try until someone shows you how much they matter. 5. The one-inch shift that changes everything. Mark had been married 32 years. He wasn't the type to complain. Quiet, methodical, loyal. He believed in showing up, paying bills, being present at dinner. He believed that was enough. But one afternoon, during a follow-up visit, he broke his silence. "Doc," he said, "we're doing everything we've always done, but she's not there, not fully. She doesn't complain, but I can feel it. It's like her body is with me, but her mind is somewhere else." I asked him something simple. "Have you ever adjusted your angle?" He looked confused. "You mean tried a new position?" "No, I mean adjusted while you were in the same position." That's when I introduced him to the idea of angling. See, most men are never taught that the clitoris isn't just a tiny button on the outside. It's a vast internal structure shaped almost like a wishbone extending along both sides of the vaginal canal. And depending on how your body aligns with hers, you might be stimulating it or completely missing it. Angling means shifting your position just a little. Maybe you lift your torso slightly. Maybe you lower it. Maybe her legs move higher or wider. Maybe her hips tilt up. Maybe you press more with your pelvis than with your shaft. None of this requires acrobatics. It requires attention. It means you stop long enough to notice when her breath catches, or when her hand tightens on your shoulder. It means asking gently, "Does this feel better?" and being willing to hear what she says. Mark started trying this, not with urgency, with curiosity. He stopped trying to do more. He started doing different, and something shifted in their bedroom. His wife didn't just respond physically, she responded emotionally. She began to make sounds he hadn't heard since their 20s. She began to move with him, instead of just beneath him. He came back a month later and said, "Doc, I think we've been speaking two different languages for years, and now we're finally having a conversation." That's what angling is, not a trick, not a technique. It's a new language, one written in inches, one spoken in touch, one that says, "I want to meet you where you feel most alive." And when you learn to speak that language, when you treat every shift as a question, every reaction as an answer, you stop trying to win sex and start trying to understand it. But what if I told you that sometimes it's not about adjusting deeper, but actually going less deep? That just by staying near the surface, you can tap into some of the most nerve-rich areas of her body, places that often get overlooked in our pursuit of more. Let's talk about that next. 6. Go shallow to go deeper. Leo was 68, a solid, dependable man. He came into my office with something he didn't quite know how to say, so he settled for a half joke. "Doc, I'm putting in the work, but she's still not clocking in." He meant it lightheartedly, but the frustration in his voice betrayed something deeper, not anger, not ego, just confusion. "I try hard," he said. "She never complains, but I can tell something's missing." So I asked him the same question I've asked hundreds of men before. "Have you ever tried going shallower?" He looked at me dead serious. "You mean not all the way in?" "Exactly. There's a deeply ingrained myth among men passed down through locker rooms, late-night movies, and cultural noise that the deeper you go, the more of a man you are. But the truth is, the most nerve-dense region of the vaginal canal isn't deep at all. It's right at the entrance. The first 1 to 2 inches. That's where the magic lies. These are the areas that light up under neuroimaging, that pulse when blood flow increases, that respond with sensitivity, warmth, and subtle waves of pleasure if we stop trying to bypass them. Shallowing is the practice of staying near the surface, moving gently, letting the head of the penis or even just the base tease and explore the areas that have often been neglected. It's not about restraint, it's about refinement. Because for many women, especially post-menopausal, especially those with pelvic floor sensitivity or trauma history, deep penetration can feel more intrusive than arousing. When Leo tried this, he didn't announce it, he just stayed closer. Slower, he paid attention. He watched her face instead of chasing a goal, and halfway through she whispered something he said he'll never forget. I feel like you're finally inside me, but not just physically. It wasn't the depth of his thrust. It was the depth of his presence. Because when you slow down, when you stay close, when you resist the urge to press forward and instead press in emotionally, energetically, that's when her body begins to speak back. That's when she stops waiting for it to be over and starts wishing it would never end. Shallowing isn't a step down, it's a doorway in to sensation, to safety, to surrender. And when paired with clitoral stimulation or subtle angling, it often leads to climaxes that are less explosive, more wave-like, more whole. So if you've been taught that real sex means depth, force, and drive, I'm here to tell you, real sex means connection. And sometimes the most profound connection happens just inches from where you thought it would. Now, imagine what happens when you combine this subtle approach with one final key, direct stimulation of the part of her anatomy most likely to bring her to orgasm. This next step may be the most important one yet. 7. Add this and she'll never forget it. Edward was 71. The kind of man who grew up believing that real sex needed no help, no gadgets, no tricks, just a man, a woman, and nature doing its thing. He sat across from me with folded arms and quiet pride, but behind his eyes there was something stirring. My wife watched this documentary, he said, about female pleasure. And afterward, she told me, I love you, but I need something more. He looked down at the floor, unsure what to do with those words. I thought I'd failed her, that maybe I wasn't enough anymore. But here's what I told Edward, the same thing I tell any man in his shoes. You haven't failed her. You've just been handed a new opportunity to listen differently. Enter pairing. Pairing is the practice of stimulating the clitoris during intercourse using your hand, her hand, or a small vibrator. And for many women, this isn't a bonus. It's the missing piece. Science is clear. Up to 70% of women require direct clitoral stimulation to reach orgasm. That's not dysfunction, that's biology. Edward took a deep breath, swallowed some pride, and asked, so where do we even start? Together they chose something simple, a small, quiet device, nothing flashy, nothing loud. He held it gently against her as they moved together. No pressure, no expectation, just curiosity and care. And that night, he saw a side of her he hadn't seen in decades. She lit up, he told me, like she'd been waiting all this time for someone to ask her what she needed, and finally I did. Afterwards, they didn't rush to clean up. They lay there talking, laughing, holding each other like it was their first time all over again. That's the gift of pairing. It's not a surrender of masculinity. It's a celebration of partnership. It says, your pleasure matters to me. Not just as a byproduct of mine, but as its own experience, its own worth. Some men worry this takes away from their role, but I say the opposite. The man who learns how to use his hand or hers or even a tool to amplify her pleasure, that man isn't less of a lover, he's more. Because he's not chasing ego, he's building trust. He's creating space for her to feel safe enough to feel everything. Pairing turns sex into collaboration. It invites her whole body into the experience, not just the parts we were taught to focus on. And when she feels that inclusion, physically, emotionally, energetically, she'll never forget it. You want to give her something unforgettable. Give her your attention, your openness, your willingness to try what no one ever told you was allowed. And when you do, you'll discover something profound, that everything we've covered, from control to rhythm to shallowing to pairing, has never really been about sex. It's been about returning to a place where you both feel fully alive. Now, let's step back and see what all of this has built, what it actually means for your relationship going forward. Because this isn't the end of anything, it might just be the beginning. 8. The bedroom isn't where it ends. There comes a point, usually after the kids are grown, the house is quieter, and your calendar isn't packed with things that don't matter, when a man starts asking himself deeper questions. Not, am I still a good lover? But have I ever really known how to love her with my whole self? That's the moment I see most often in my office. Not urgency, not crisis, but the quiet ache of a man who's done all the right things and still feels like something's missing. After all we've talked about, the positions, the angles, the rhythm, the stimulation, you might think this is a conversation about sex. But it isn't, not really. It's about intimacy. It's about the space between two people that can go untouched for decades, even as they share beds, bank accounts, and breakfast. You see, the bedroom is not where it ends, it's where it begins again. When a man decides to stop performing and start listening, that shift echoes far beyond the sheets. It shows up in how he kisses her shoulder while she does the dishes, in how he asks, "How are you really?" and waits for the long answer, in how he holds her hand in the grocery store without needing a reason. That's the kind of intimacy that bleeds into everything. And when she starts to feel it, when she sees that you're not trying to fix her or prove yourself, but actually meet her, she begins to soften in ways she thought were long gone. The sex gets better, yes. But more than that, the space between you gets warmer. One man, after trying everything we've discussed, told me something that stopped me cold. He said, "Doc, I always thought the goal was to make her come, but I think what she really wanted was for me to come back to us, back to seeing her." That's the kind of realization that doesn't just change your nights. It changes your days. It's why this work matters, not for the climax, but for the closeness, not to reclaim youth, but to rediscover connection. And once you've walked this path even partway, you'll never go back to silent distance. You'll crave the eye contact, the laughter, the moments of stillness that speak louder than moans. So tonight, when the lights go out and your body is tired and the world is quiet, remember this: you don't need to be younger. You don't need to be someone else. You just need to be fully here. Because the man who chooses to love with intention, after 60, after decades, after pain and history and change, that man isn't starting over. He's finally arriving. And once you've arrived, there's still one final step, not a technique, not a tip, a decision, to become the man she's been waiting for all along. 9. The man she's been waiting for all along. By now, if you've walked with me through this entire journey, you know this isn't about how many positions you master, or how long you last, or how much you remember from this video. It's about presence. The rare kind. The kind that makes a woman stop pretending. The kind that makes her breathe differently. The kind that makes her feel seen, because here's the truth no one says out loud. She's been waiting, not for someone younger, or richer, or more skilled. She's been waiting for you, not the man who rushes through, not the man who checks the box, but the man who shows up with eyes open, ears listening, and hands that ask instead of assume. The man who says, "I may be older, but I'm not done learning, not done loving, not done awakening parts of you even you forgot existed." That man, he doesn't need tricks, he doesn't need approval, he doesn't even need perfect erections every time. He just needs the courage to stop hiding behind routine and start offering his full self again. Because after 60, 70, even 80, the body may slow down, but the heart, it gets clearer, the touch becomes wiser, and every kiss carries the weight of everything you've survived together. So tonight or this weekend or whenever you feel that spark returning, don't aim to be the man you were at 30. Be the man you've earned the right to become. The one who no longer performs. The one who no longer doubts. The one who says without shame, "I'm here to love you better now." And if this conversation has spoken to something inside you, if you've seen yourself in the stories, in the quiet moments, in the questions, then do me a favor, tap the like button, not for me, but because that little click tells us you're ready for more. And it helps this message reach another man who might be sitting in silence right now thinking he's broken. He's not, you're not. She's not gone, and intimacy, it doesn't expire. Leave a comment if this moved you, ask a question, share your story, because every time you speak up, you make it safer for another man to do the same, and subscribe if you haven't yet, because this isn't a one-time conversation, it's a new chapter. And I promise what comes next will make everything you've just heard feel like just the beginning. Take care of yourself, and take care of her. She's been waiting. So go. Give her the man she's been waiting for all along.